Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar today, where we'll be going over the features designed to help you, our customers, towards GDPR compliance. I'm Shashank. I'm part of the product marketing team for Zoho CRM, and I'll be hosting today's presentation. I have here with me Dilip, product manager for Zoho CRM, to give you the demo. As always, if anyone has questions, feel free to type them out in the chat box as we'll be addressing them side by side. We have support people on chat to take your questions. I'm currently recording this webinar and I will send out a link for the recording to all the registrants. Before we get started, let's go over the agenda for the webinar. First, we'll be briefly going over the basics of GDPR, what it is, what it does, and how it affects an organization. Then, we'll be taking a couple of common assumptions when it comes to GDPR and see what the facts tell us. Then we'll talk about the various features we have and will be introducing to help our customers towards compliance. And then we'll finally have a demo session where we'll demonstrate the features that we'll be talking about. So, what is GDPR? GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation, is a comprehensive set of rules that will replace the existing Data Protection Directive and will be enforced across the European Union on the 25th of May 2018. It is designed to empower EU residents by putting them directly in control of how they want their data to be processed and protect their data privacy. GDPR is a regulation, not a directive. A directive is a set of rules presented to the entire EU that can be interpreted and implemented differently by each of the 28 countries within the Union. The new regulation, on the other hand, harmonizes data protection laws and will be implemented uniformly by one supervisory authority across the entire Union. Companies looking to serve EU residents will no longer face a patchwork of similar yet non-identical compliance requirements when it comes to data protection and privacy. Now, GDPR is a topic of many nuances. There are bound to be some misconceptions and misunderstandings. So let us lay down a couple of facts regarding the law. So this is a common assumption. Consent is mandatory for processing customer data. I would like to state on record that I am guilty of assuming this as well. With so much emphasis on consent being needed for an organization to process personal information of customers in GDPR, this is understandable. But the fact of the matter is, consent is just one of the 6 lawful bases for processing customer data, the other 5 being legitimate interest, public interest, vital interest, contractual necessity, and legal obligation. Although explicit consent is required when processing special categories of personal data such as race, religion, political affiliations or opinions, genetic and biometric data. Another common assumption is that GDPR doesn't affect organizations based outside of the EU, but that is not the case. GDPR is applicable to all organizations that are established in the EU or organizations that work with personal data of EU customers. In short, GDPR applies to any business that processes the data of EU residents irrespective of where the organization is located. So all GDPR-centric features will be made available in both the EU and the US servers. So organizations that use Zoho CRM don't have to worry about their sales software being non-compliant. This brings us to our features. For GDPR, we've designed features to address 3 broad categories: data collection, data processing, and data subject rights. For data collection, it's important to know where your customer's data is being pushed into Zoho CRM and also validate the interest of that customer in what you're offering through a double opt-in mechanism. You can ensure quality leads and dedicate resources on following up with people who want to hear from you. Data processing: once you have that customer data inside your CRM, you can choose one of the 6 lawful bases of processing that information. You can also restrict personal information from being processed in certain activities and also keep this data secure even in storage. You can also monitor and document the various processing activities carried out on a customer's record with the timeline and audit logs. And with regards to data subject rights, We have made provisions to address the various rights that are available to EU residents under GDPR. This helps you keep track of and fulfill these data requests as and when they are made. So Dilip will now briefly walk you through the features and then give the demo.
Hey, thanks, Shashank. As he was explaining, we are going to cover three important categories through which Zoho CRM is going to provide this compliance related features. We will quickly getting into the data collection. This is very important. How the data is coming inside Zoho CRM. So the right at the moment it comes inside, we need to be very clear through which source it is coming from. Previously, we are not capturing this. Since GDPR is in place, we are capturing all the ways through which the data are coming, and we are capturing each and every sources of it. So the next one is the double opt-in. So we will go through these two things in detail. As you could see, there are so many different ways through which the data comes inside Zoho CRM. A few examples I have quoted: web forms, import, data migration, APIs, probably through the application synchronizations between Zoho CRM and the Google Contacts, Outlook Contacts, Office 365, and so on and so forth. So all these places, so we have been pulling data inside Zoho CRM. So how we are going to track these sources? So what we are doing is we are making a very important step that whichever way the data comes inside Zoho CRM, we are tagging a particular source to it, a genuine source to each and every data which comes inside Zoho CRM. So that's important part of it. Um, Before getting into the demo, this is the screenshot we would like to share with you. Um, you could see here, John Smith is the contact, and if you could see here, there is an additional tab which we are introducing called data privacy, and if you click on that, it will give you who is the contact and what is the source through which it has come from. So you could see the web form, the form name, the URL, IP address, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the sources through which the data has come inside. There could be different sources. So we will see a few things in this demo. And the second one is the opt-in mechanism, double opt-in mechanism. Inside web forms, we have an additional tool, as well as once you have given all your fields inside your form, there will be an option where you can actually switch on your double opt-in. So by switching it on, what happens is whoever submits the data will not come directly inside Zoho CRM, whereas Zoho CRM sends an automatic email to the person who has submitted the form to the email address which he or she has mentioned. Once he or she goes and clicks on that link which we are sending through the email, then the information whichever been submitted will be pushed inside Zoho CRM. So it is actually validates the customer's interest, and of course it avoids the spams, and it avoids a fraudulent emails being pushed inside CRM and we unknowingly call them or email them. So all these unlawful stuffs will be eradicated by this double opt-in mechanism, and we are introducing this as well. So what we will do is we will quickly get into the demo. Just give me a second. Okay. What we are going to do is we will try to create um, a lead, probably manually, and we will see how we are going to capture that. So what I'm doing is just a second. So I'm trying to create a lead. Okay. Now I'm saving this lead. Perfect. It's pretty straightforward. You can see here there is additional tab which called data privacy. So this is the one we are introducing exclusively for the GDPR compliance. Now I'm clicking on that. You could see a few things very specific to the GDPR compliance. As you could see, the source, it's I have created this very manually. So the source has been tagged as manual, and then it gives you on what date it got created and who created that, and a few things we will come a little later. So this is one kind of creation inside Zoho CRM that's actually manual. We will try to create one more way. Let me check whether I can create through API. Okay, I have one. Okay, so most of you might be aware of this Postman. What I'm doing is I have created a JSON through which I'm going to insert a record through the API. So I have set all my stuffs in place. I have given all my the tickets and everything in place. So what I'll do is I'll try to create a lead, say the okay. So just a sample lead. I'll try to create a record. Okay, so I have received the response. Let me see whether it got created or not. Okay, let me go to the leads module. Here we go. So now I have created a lead through the API. Let's quickly see what is the source it has tagged. Again, I'm going inside the lead and inside the data privacy, and you could see the source is API. So moving forward, what we will do is we are trying to capture and from what IP address the API is being called. So all those things are coming a little later. So we are capturing all those details because those things are very important. So this is another way. So if you are submitting something from the web form, that is also a possibility. Maybe I'll just try to create one more. Let me see whether it works for you. Okay, so now I have created a web form and I've hosted in another site, sites.google.com. It's my own site for the testing purpose. Let me see whether I can capture it. ABC Corp. Okay. Right. So now it redirects to Zoho One page. Let me check whether that is getting created here. Here we go. So whatever I have submitted through the web form, it has come, and let me see the lead source whether it's been captured. Here it is. Now it clearly gives me the source, the web form through which it has come, and then the website. So this is the website Google actually provides us. So this is the biggest the URL which they are offering to us, and we are actually capturing that and put it inside our DB. And from which form? So this is my web form which I have created, and it also identifies through which web form it is coming from. So all these things are very important as far as the data sources are concerned. So we have just seen 3 or 4 different examples through which the data source are being captured. So this is how we are capturing the data source in Zoho CRM, and irrespective of what source it is coming from. So all the sources we are capturing. So that covers the first part of the data collection. The second one is the double opt-in mechanism. Let's quickly get into that. Okay. Okay. So I'm getting inside the setup page, and then you could see the web forms under the developer space. Now what I'm doing is I'm going inside the web form, and I've created a couple of forms for my testing. Let me get into one. Okay. So you could see a few fields being dragged upon and placed here: last name, email, company, and these are all the two checkboxes which I have chosen. These are all actually nothing but one of the fields of that particular module. And so what I'll do is I'll go to the next step, and you could see here. Uh, so this is a very familiar page for you, wherein you give the form name, what is the URL from which the form should be invoked, and what is the landing page. So all those things. So you must be aware of all these things. The important aspect is this one. So enabling double opt-in. So now I have switched it off. So if you want, you can switch it on. Once it is switched on, as I was mentioning earlier, whenever the customer submits the data through this web form, the information will not go directly into your CRM account, whereas a mail will be sent to that particular email of the customer. Upon confirmation, then that information will be pushed inside the CRM. So this is very important to make sure you are getting proper leads from the verified email addresses. This is one thing which is important. And at the same time, your source and the identity of the data subject is verified. So this is the another important thing that we are introducing. So these steps, as you all know, so you can just copy paste it to your website, and it works like charm. Maybe so what we will do is I'll show you one more demo on how we have embedded that in our Zoho sites. So I have taken that code snippet and I'm trying to put it inside the Zoho sites. So it doesn't matter. So if you are using Joomla, any CMS or any of your websites, you can just put that source inside that, and then you can invoke the web page, and the form will be rendered, and whoever is submitting it, those people will be getting a mail to confirm their identity, and then the data will be pushed inside the CRM. Now this is the data. And once I'm done with that, I can publish it. So this is how the page looks like, and if you want, you can tweak your own HTMLs. The HTML source is available for you. You can tweak it on your own, and then once it is done, it is ready for the submission. So that's about the web forms and the double opt-ins. So the next step, the next category that we are trying to capture inside Zoho CRM is data processing. Now the first step is the data has come inside. Now once the data has come inside, how do you want to process it? So this also has to be in a certain way so that it can be GDPR compliant. So the few things which I have quoted down is the first one is the processing basis. There are different types of processing bases. We will look into that. And then the consent forms, how we are going to provide the consent form, and how people can click that and submit their consent. And then marking a few of your fields as personal fields, so that we will see. And then how we can restrict those personal fields and the personal data inside Zoho CRM. And then the last one is the encryption at rest, how we are going to provide the encryption when it is stored in the database. Okay. So what we will do is we will quickly run through these slides, because most of the things we will be covering up in the demo session. We'll just quickly glance through these slides. So this slide tells you about how we can mark the data processing basis of your data, because the marking of data processing basis is very fundamental. Based on that, you need to process your data of your customers. There are 6 different bases, as Shashank was explaining: legitimate interest, contracts, legal obligations, vital interest, public interest, and the last one is the consent. Okay, so we will see one by one. So we will quickly go through these dashboards where it's a centralized place where you can see all the things together, and you can take a call on how to apply the data processing basis and other stuffs. And then the consent form. The consent form looks like this, and how you can send the link of the consent form through the email templates, and from what are all the places from which the consent form can be sent to the customers. Right. And then the marking of the personal fields. We will go through this one by one. And how do we restrict them being processed? And the encryption at rest. So whatever the activities that we do on the customer's data is already being tracked. So if you click on the timeline of each and every record of your customers, you could see all the records being tracked, and it has got its own timestamp. So this is very important, just in case if the customers are asking for a complete data access. This will be very handy for you. Okay, so let's see whatever the things that we have seen on the slides in a demo. The first one is the data processing basis. We will see that. Okay, so now I'm going inside the leads module. So there are few places where you can actually mark the data processing basis. This is one place where you could see the list of leads, and I can choose what all the leads I want to mark to a particular processing basis. Now I'm choosing this, and then going to this triple dot, more action stuff, where you can see there is an action called update data processing basis. Now I'm clicking on that. It gives you an option to choose what basis you want to apply to these records, and you could see, you can read the caution here. This is very important that you take necessary legal precautions before you mark your data subjects processing basis. This is very important. Your customers well, so whether they have come through the contract, or they are unknown to you, or they are very legitimate. So we do not really know through which basis they have come from. So you take a clear decision on this and then you act upon. So Zoho CRM always provides necessary um, tools to address all these things, but we do not recommend any GDPR practices, because we really do not know what your customers are and how we want to deal with your customers. So we provide necessary tools to facilitate how you can comply with GDPR. So this is one aspect of that. So we provide necessary tool here to make sure that you mark each of your customers process in a particular way. Now, so for these 4 leads, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make it as say contract, and I provide some necessary details. These leads are with us for the contract. Okay. Now I've just marked a particular data processing basis. Now again, if I go inside the lead again to the data privacy tab, you could see here the data processing basis. It says it's applicable, of course it is, and then I'm saying it as basis as contract, and then what are all the remarks that I have told there has been recorded here, and who updated that, because this is also very important. If any of your users have marked these bases, you will be in a position to see who has done what, and if just in case if there are any wrongdoings, probably you can identify who has done as what, and then you can take necessary actions based on that. So now you can also edit, and if you want to change the data processing basis from contract to something else, you can still do it. It's up to you. Okay, so this is one small way where you can do the data processing basis update. There is another place where you can just do it is you go inside the setup. You could see there is a setup called a link called compliance settings. You go and click on that. You could see here there is a compliance settings, and for me I have switched it on before getting into this demo. For you it might be off. When you switch it on, it asks you what are all the modules you want to put it inside the compliance. You could see here these are all the modules. Basically we cover leads, contacts, vendors, and all the custom modules you have. So you can choose the modules you want to put it inside the compliance and then switch it on. So once it's switched on, it'll give you this page where you can see in leads how many total records are there and how many are not on the applicable status and how many of them applicable, and then under the consent how many of them, and on the other basis how many of them. So it gives you a clear picture of where your leads are standing up. So based upon your discretion you can change the values accordingly. So if you click on that, it gives you the consent, and you can choose, and you can update the data processing basis. So this is another place where you can do the updating of the data processing basis. Okay, so we are moving on to the next part, the concern part. For that, let me go inside the lead. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just go inside this record. Okay, so this has already been marked as contract. Maybe we'll go to the next one. Okay, so for this it is in the applicable status false. Now what I'll do is I'll just make it as applicable, and then I can mark it as concerned. So this is through one-on-one basis. If you want to mark the legal the data processing basis one by one, you can still do it. The other way is you just choose a few records together, and then you can update the data processing basis in a bulk way. So now what I've done is I've chosen consent as the lawful basis, and I'm saying done. Automatically what happens is it goes inside the pending status. It means you marked it as consent for this particular lead. Now you cannot send any mails, you cannot communicate with them, because you want a consent from that particular person. It's been put inside the pending status. Now what I'll do is I'll try to send a consent form. So before sending the consent form, let's see how the consent form looks like. Okay, for that let me go inside the setup again, the compliance settings, and then the web form. You could see here a template we are providing for the web form, and so everything is customizable, the wordings, the fields and the statements. So it's all your choice, so you can fill up whatever you want. And then so this communication preference is very vital. If you want, anyway you're not going to send any surveys to your customers, you can hide that, or if you want to show them, you can show that. So once the customer wants to allowing themselves to contact them through the email, you can just click the email, phone number, whatever they want, they can do that. If they are opting out, then what happens is automatically inside CRM that record will be opted out, and then email communication cannot be done for that particular customer. So if the phone is checked out, then what happens is you cannot establish a call from Zoho CRM. So that is also possible through this form. And you could see the people can submit the form, and of course they can decline the consent. So whatever the actions they want to do it, they can still do it. Based on that, we will track those information and put it inside the CRM. And if you want to see the preview of this form, you can still see it. Okay, so that's about the consent form. Now what we will do is we will go back to that particular lead. So I am not going to save any changes. So let me go to that particular lead. This is the one. Okay. Now I can send a form to this particular person. Let me see how we can send it. So I'm clicking on the consent form. So there is another way where you can send the consent form is by just clicking on that and send mail. Oh, okay. You cannot send mail as the email address is invalid. Perfect. Okay, so let me go to this one. Perfect. Now so before sending it, I need to select a template. So here what I'll do is, I'm not interested in any of these templates. I'll create a new template. I'll create it from scratch. Demo template. Okay. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to insert the consent form which we have seen just before this. So I'm going to link the consent form. So by just clicking that link icon, you could see URL can be included, email, and this is the extra step that we have included, the consent form link. You can just choose that, and under what language you want to send it, you can send it. Now I'm sending it. So please provide your consent by clicking the form link. Now the consent form link is being attached here. I'm saving it. It asks me for a folder. Now I am ready. So this is the template that I have created. Okay, I want to send it. Okay, so the mails have been sent. So as soon as the mail's been sent, what happens is automatically the status from pending, it would be moved to awaiting if the consent is the lawful basis for that record. So once the data is being submitted by the customers, from awaiting it will be moved to the obtained. Let me get into the same record. Now the mail has been sent, and now it says that it's under the waiting status. So once that particular customer has submitted that link, automatically it moves to the obtained status. There is another way. Whatever we have talked about is the automated way of sending the consent and then getting the consent from the customers. There is another way where you can actually manually update the consent. Probably the customers might give you a call and provide his consent, saying that he can be approached through mail, phone, or through survey, whatever. So you can mark those things here. Customer phone. Okay, now I'm just choosing all these three. I'm saving it. You could see here from the waiting, automatically it moves to the obtained status. So this is the way we are capturing the concerns transition. So once it's obtained, then your your record is good to go. You can still send mails to them, and it is very legal. Now you approach them for any mail or phone communication. So that's about the consent forms and links. Let's move on to the next topic, the personal data. For that, let me go inside that setup again. I'm going inside the module builder. I'm going inside the leads module. I have two layouts. I'll get into the standard layout. So you could see there are a lot of fields being displayed there. The interesting part is, for example, let me put one more field. Say my bank. Okay. And I would say it's required. Do not allow duplicates. All those things. You could see there is an interesting field which says containing personal data. So if I am clicking on that, if as a controller, as a Zoho CRM user or administrator, if you feel that this particular field is a personal data for that customer, you can mark this. Now once you mark that, it gives you another two options wherein you can choose whether it's a normal personal data or it is very sensitive. If you feel that bank account number is very sensitive for that particular customer, what you can do is you can mark it as sensitive, and that's it. And there is one more interesting stuff that we would like to quote here is, even before this release, we have introduced something called the Encryption at Rest. So you could see this field here. If you just clicking on that, automatically what happens is inside the DB we will have our own algorithms to make sure that your data is being encrypted and put it inside the database, not just a raw data being pushed inside the database. Now, so what we have done is I have created a field called bank account number, and then I made a few things. Most important thing is I marked it as personal data and I made it as sensitive, and then I'm going to encrypt this field. I'm done. So like this you can do up to 30 fields you can mark as your personal fields. So once you have done that, you could see here inside the fields module, inside the fields tab, you could see the personal fields. So even before this demo I have marked a couple of fields, so those also getting listed out here, and it says this bank account is encrypted and the personal data is high and sensitive. Okay, so that's about the personal data. The next important thing is how we are going to restrict that. From Zoho CRM, how we can restrict to the other services or to the APIs or to other third-party applications and so on and so forth. Again, we will go inside the setup. Um, right. So inside the compliance settings, you could see the preferences, and you could see here the personal data handling. So there are 4 different options that we are providing for this release. Is how do you restrict your personal data being transferred to Zoho apps, and how do you restrict them going to the third-party applications, and through the API if you want to restrict, how you can restrict, and when you are exporting the data, how you want to restrict them. So these are all the 4 things that we are covering for this release. Let's see one by one. Now as of now, apart from the API, everything is off. It means it allows the personal data to be transferred if required to other applications. So what I mean Zoho apps here is inside Zoho CRM there are various integrations we are providing. For all those integrations, whether we can supply this personal data to those services or not, you can take a call as a Zoho CRM user or a Zoho CRM administrator. You can take a call if you want to have a very stringent rule saying that none of the personal data from my CRM database should not go to the other application. You can switch it off, and you could see here it gives you a clear warning saying that if you are restricting the personal data, there is a possibility where these services, campaigns, click, desk, finance, projects and reports might not work due to some restrictions. If you are still okay with that, then you can go ahead about restricting them. Otherwise you can just cancel it and you can happily allow your Zoho services to access the personal data. So in my case I am saying that okay, let me go and restrict it as well, and then it gives me another option which says that whether you want to restrict the sensitive data or normal and the sensitive data. In my case I would like to restrict only the sensitive data. The rest of the things I am good. So this is one way. The second one is third-party application. By default we provide a few third-party applications out of the box. To name a few: Google contact synchronization, Google Calendar, Google AdWords, and then Office 365 integration, Microsoft's Outlook plugin, Word plugin, of course Slack. So all those things are there. So if you want to restrict them, you can restrict them. See these the applications that we provide, integration we are listing out here. If you want to say I do not want to do any transactions, any transfer between Zoho and Google, you can restrict them. And if you do not want to pass on the personal data to none of these services, you can still do it. So once I am done with that, it says the selected applications may not work as intended due to the restrictions. So once this restriction is on, what happens is none of the data will go to the other third-party application. Say for example, for the Google contacts, what happens is if email address and first name are being marked as personal data and you are restricting on them, Google Contacts requires first name to be mandatory. So if Zoho CRM is not going to provide this information to Google Contacts, what happens is it is of no use that Zoho CRM's contact will be pushed inside the Google Contact. Whereas from the Google Contact, data will be pushed and created inside Zoho CRM. So these are all the small things you might face when you are restricting a few personal data restrictions. So that's about the restrictions. So the other one is the API. If you want to restrict a few data to be not to be pushed inside the API, you can restrict that. Otherwise, you can switch it off and it would be available through the API. Export is very important. So when a few personal data are being marked and you do not want any of your employees or your users to export those data, what you can do is you can switch it on, and you could see here the places where we are bringing all the restrictions. Excuse me. So whether it is a bulk export or the Zoho sheet view or from the reports, most of the exports happens. So all those things we are restricting. On the data migration, of course, we will provide, because if you want to move from Zoho CRM to some other CRM, we should be in a position to provide that. So that information will definitely provide. The rest of the places we will do the restriction as it is mentioned here. So I'm not interested, so I'm just making it as cancel. So these are all the things that I can do, and if I am done with that, I can save it. So that's about the restrictions on the PII data, that is the personal data. Okay, so the next part is the data subject rights. As Shashank was explaining about each and every data subject rights, we are providing a few facilitation inside the CRM so that the customers can make use of these data subject rights. The first one is right to access. The customers can demand a copy of their data. So what we are going to provide from Zoho CRM is you can send them a mail by just merging the required fields, probably the personal fields, and then send a mail to them. Obviously they can get to access of their personal data there. So this is one way, very easiest way. The another way is, if you are an enterprise user and above, if you have given the customer portal to your customers, through the customer portal the customer can still access the data, and then they can also rectify it. So that's the next topic, how to give the rectification aspects to the customer. So through the customer portal it is pretty straightforward. The customers can go inside, they can, if they want to edit the phone number, they can still do it. The another way, assume that you are not using the customer portal at all, then what happens is we will provide a .csv file. You can actually export it and give it to your customer, and then the customer can just key in or update a few records there and then give it back to you. Then you can import it inside Zoho CRM and get the things done. So this is right to rectification, and we are providing that. The third one is the export options. Suppose the customer wants to move out of your CRM, your system, and he wants the entire stuff to be exported and given back to them, then what happens is we will provide a .csv file format. You can give it to them and they can just take that .csv file format. It's a machine readable format. They can just put it in any of the other vendors and they can make use of it. So this is also available. The fourth one is very important. Suppose a particular customer doesn't want to process his or her data, then how do we facilitate them? How do we honor that request? So that actually comes under that right to restrict processing. What we are doing is, once the stop processing request being reached us, we will provide necessary locks to the system to that particular record. Then none of the actions will be available for the user. So it's almost like waiting for the approval. So if your record is in the waiting for the approval, none of your buttons, edit, nothing will work as expected. So similarly, when we are bringing that particular lock kind of a mechanism inside Zoho CRM, so that any of your customer request for a stop processing, right, what you can do is you go inside the record. There will be an option to lock it. There is another way. If the customer wants to raise this request, he can send a mail or he can give you a call. You can raise this request on behalf of them. That is also a possibility. The last one that we are capturing inside Zoho CRM is right to be forgotten. If the customer wants to delete his data, he can raise the concern, and then what we will do is, before deleting it, we can do the stop processing, and then we will see the consequences of how it can be deleted, and based upon your discretion you can take a call on the delete. And once it is deleted, we will provide a necessary option to move it to the block list. The reason for moving it to the block list is it would be in the hashed format. The reason is a person might not be interested at all and he wants to move away from your system, and you promised him that it would be deleted. And what happens is, from some other sources, the same email address, so the same customers comes with the same email address, the system will prompt you saying that, hey, this email address already been moved under the blocked list and you still want to push it inside the Zoho CRM. So now the system gives you the intelligence, and if you really require to push it inside the CRM, you can do it. Otherwise, you can actually neglect that creation itself. So all these things are being provided. So these are all the data subjects that we are trying to capture inside the CRM. We will quickly see how we are actually facilitating inside the CRM. Just give me a couple of minutes to give this demo. Right. Okay, so I'm inside the leads module, and you could see I'm inside the data privacy, and the data sources are being shown there, and then the personal data. What are all the personal data for this particular customer? Email, website, street, and mobile are being marked as personal data, and the data processing base is not applicable as of now. And you could see there is another section which says data subject requests. Just in case this particular customer has raised any data subject request, it would be appearing here. Now, if he calls you and asks for a data access, and if you want to make a track of it, then what you can do is, so these are all the requests that we are providing inside Zoho CRM. As a user, you can raise this on behalf of your customer. This is just a facilitation, and you can do it on behalf of your customer. Now, he has asked for a data request, access request. Now I am just choosing this and I'm clicking on that. What happens is, automatically a request will be created, and then it will be shown there. So like each and every request will be added and it will be shown here. And there is another place where you can see all these things in a consolidated format. Let me go straight into the compliance setting again. As you can see here, data subject requests. So from the data subject request, you could see how many requests have come for access, rectify, export, stop processing, and delete. And you can also, so since there are no data, it's not being shown. If there are any data, then what happens is you can actually click on that and you can see um, the list of things there. So that's about the data subject request. So by concluding that, we have covered all the three categories. Let me summarize. We started off with data collection, in which we have covered the data sources, various data sources being covered inside Zoho CRM. The second one is the double opt-in inside the web form. So those two things are under the data collection. The second one is the data processing, in which we saw a lot of things very elaborately. The lawful basis, the processing basis, marking of the processing basis, and then the consent form and sending the consent form through link to the customers, and then marking the personal data, the normal and sensitive, and how do we restrict them inside Zoho CRM being pushed outside CRM to probably to the Zoho services or to the third-party applications through the API or in the import. And then we covered data subject rights, 5 different rights we are capturing for this release, and how the request can be raised from the CRM customer's perspective, and from CRM user perspective how the request can be raised, and the consolidated place where you can see all the necessary data subject request details. So that's about that. So we will get into the final part of it. Over to you, Sashank.
Thank you for that very in-depth and informative demo, Dilip. With that, we've reached the end of this webinar. If you have any more questions, do not hesitate to contact us. And as mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded and I will send out a link for future reference. Thank you for taking the time to be here today, and we hope you continue to have a great experience with Zoho CRM. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.